Give me a minute. Unmute. I'm going to start over. Welcome to the July 27th, 2021 Verona Board of Education public portion of our meeting. We're calling the meeting to order at 7:10, and if everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The reading of the meeting notice. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 5th, 2021. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Cedar Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Township of Verona, and the VEA. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has the right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public and the press. Mr. Cruz, will call for attendance?
Sure, thank you. Mr. Allworth? Absent. Mr. Day? Absent. Mrs. Trappy?
Here.
Mrs. Fresky?
Here.
Mrs. Prisco?
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much. And this evening, we do not have any formal presentations. So we are going to go to our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Fresky. Good evening, everyone. I have several updates this evening as part of the superintendent's report. Three key updates that I'd like to provide to the board and to the public. The first is the district continues to plan for September of 2021, preparing for full days of school with lunch in all of our schools. We are following, of course, the CDC and Department of Health guidance. At the last Board of Education meeting, we shared that we were exploring mask optional possibilities. However, most recently, the CDC is now providing updated guidance as recent as today. So we will continue to update, review that guidance with our district physician, with our local health department. We will await the guidance from the Department of Health. And the guidance that's being updated again by the CDC, as I'm sure many people are keeping tabs on it in the news, is all around whether it could be mask optional in schools or not. So a lot of things are evolving as we expected. We are continuing to plan for full day, every day, as we were doing in the spring, making sure that we have all of the students in school in September. We do anticipate that we will be providing some update via email to the parents this week, just to give everyone at the midsummer point the information as to where we currently stand at this point, and that we are anticipating more of an update with guidance for our staff and for our parents and students later in mid-August, a few weeks from now. We are also working with Dr. Miller, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and he's working with Strauss Esme, who is our policy company, around our board policies and revising and editing those accordingly based on the new updated guidance. We're working with our district board council and with our district physicians. So we appreciate everybody's patience. We are making really good progress and we expect a much better year this year, and we'll continue to monitor what that guidance is. We have also been very busy this summer with summer construction. We have a number of projects across the board. We have the HVAC projects, ventilation projects across the district schools, 5 of the schools. Last summer, Verona High School was completed. We have the HVAC projects taking place at the 4 elementary schools and HBW Middle School. This evening, I have Mr. O'Brien, our construction project manager, and Mr. Higgins, who's our Director of Facilities here. And I want to call Mr. Higgins to come on up and just give us a brief overview and an update as to the status of the project so far.
Good evening. Oh, there we go. Good evening. Everybody hear me? All right. So just a quick update here on our construction project. We've got HVAC project that we have going on. We are still on track for the target date of August 31st to have all ventilation on in contracted areas. With the project this size, there's a lot of coordination that goes on between ECC, Hates Electrical, and PSE&G. We've been in communication with PSE&G to make sure we are still on track with securing proper power in forms of transformers and new telephone poles. As of now, we are waiting for 3 transformers, one at Forest, one at FM Brown, and a swap of the transformer at HBW. Monday, power was ran from a new transformer to the panel in Lanning's electrical room. We had an inspection this morning. We passed by the town electrical inspector. The town has been very accommodating with our inspection requests. So thank you goes out to all the inspectors in town for helping us out. Also at Lanning, Train is installing the communication wires for the univents. So that way our software on Dennis's laptop, the Train software can communicate with the univents. HBW has new univents that are positioned against the wall and piped in. The electricians will be able to power up those univents starting this week. HBW also has new ceiling units that have been roughed in classrooms 105, 106, the music room, and also the STEM room. Forest, Brookdale, and FN are in the process of having univents positioned against the wall and being piped in. That's all the update that I have for tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Yeah, thank you, Mr.
You're
Higgins. I
welcome.
do not have any questions. Do any board members have any questions? So just, yeah, thank you for the update. And
Thank
it
you,
seems
guys.
like we're going to be up and rolling to the end of August.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. And I do know that we have a couple of committee reports. So Mrs. Prisco is going to be updating on the facilities meeting that you had. So she has the other updates to be able to provide to the public. Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the last item that I have, a very important one, is to give an update since our last meeting on the new athletic director search. As those people know who've been following our board meetings, we've had some hiring over the past several months, an interview process. Since the last meeting, we had Mr. Merkler, who's been promoted to the high school assistant principal position. Over the past several weeks, the district has interviewed candidates for the position of athletic director. Screening process takes place. So our candidates who are interested in the position, they apply online on AppleTrack, which is the system that most school districts utilize. From the postings that go out to local websites and newspapers. Last week, a committee of staff members in the district interviewed the top 4 candidates for the position of Director of Athletics. I am pleased to announce the recommendation for an appointment for the Verona Board of Education this evening as the new Director of Athletics and Special Programs for the Verona Public School District. My recommendation after the feedback from the committees is Mrs. Laura Palmarezzi. Mrs. Palmarezzi is no stranger to our Verona family. She has served our students the past 13 years as our head boys cross-country coach, winter and spring track and field coach. She brings passion, dedication, and commitment to both academic and athletic excellence. She believes in providing valuable experiences for our students through athletics, where they will learn life lessons that will help prepare them to positively contribute to society. Mrs. Palmarezzi has dedicated herself over the past 18 years as an educator, coach, and pool manager during her summer months. As an educator, she has served on various committees and programs to help improve instruction and curriculum. She has served on the Professional Development Committee, Park and NJSLA committees, Math Curriculum Committee, and she was the lead member of the Code Blue team. She has also worked on curriculum revision committees and has analyzed data in order to improve classroom instruction. Mrs. Palmarezzi began her teaching career in 2003 at Florence Avenue School in Irvington, New Jersey. For the last 15 years, she has been an educator at school number 4 in Belleville, teaching both 3rd and 5th grade throughout her tenure. She organized Jump Rope for Heart at her school to raise money for the American Heart Association. Mrs. Palmarezzi always instilled the importance of health, wellness, and fitness in her daily lessons, and provided her students with the knowledge and skills needed to live a healthy lifestyle, both physically and mentally. In 2018-19, Mrs. Palmarezzi was honored as a recipient of the Governor's Educator of the Year Award. She began coaching at Verona High School in 2008. As the head boys cross country, winter, and spring track and field coach, she has had the privilege to coach numerous SEC Division Championship teams, county champions, state sectional, and group champions. She received the Essex County Coach of the Year Award in 2009, 2013, and 2020. She has coached many scholar athletes who excelled both on the track and in the classroom. Mrs. Palmarezzi earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and her teaching certification from Rutgers University in Newark, where she was a 3-sport athlete. She received her Master's of Arts degree in Educational Administration from Kane University. She is beyond excited to continue working in Verona in her new role as athletic director. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming Mrs. Palmarezzi as our new Director of Athletics and Special Programs.
Good evening. I want to take this time to thank many important members of our Verona community, Dr. Dionisio, members of the Board of Education, administrators, and members of the interview committee. A special thank you to Mr. Merkler for his support always. I'm looking forward to working together with him to help make this transition smooth. A big thank you in heaven to my amazing parents who introduced me to sports at a very early age and who taught me the true meaning of hard work and dedication. I know they are shining down on me tonight. Thank you to my brother and husband for being my biggest supporters throughout this process. I would be remiss if I didn't mention tonight our Verona track and field program and family. 13 amazing years coaching the best student athletes around. Coach Lepp, thank you for seeing something in me and recruiting me to come coach in Verona back in 2008. You are one of the reasons I am standing here tonight. Thank you again to everyone for trusting in me to fulfill the job of athletic director. I cannot express how grateful, honored, and excited I am to make this transition. I look forward to this new challenge and working with all of our student athletes and providing positive athletic experiences for them. Over the last 13 years, I've made many amazing relationships with our Verona community. Verona is a tremendous place. I am so thankful for this opportunity, and I look forward to working collaboratively with our school community and continuing to build on the success of our athletic programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmarezzi. We're really excited to have you join. I know that the committee is as well, and we're here to support you. Your success is our students' success and our community's success. So we wish you well, and thank you for your service as a coach for the past 13 plus years. And we're looking forward to seeing you continue to build upon the future of Verona. Thank you. And that concludes my superintendent report for this evening. I do know we have several committee reports to get through, so that concludes everything for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Dionisio. And Mrs. Palmarezzi, I just want to say again, welcome. We had an opportunity to speak in confidential for a couple of minutes, and I think the energy and positivity that you're bringing with you is going to serve our district really well. Congratulations. Our first committee report meeting was education, and Ms. Drappi, did you meet?
Yes, we met earlier today. Just a couple main items, wasn't a very long meeting. So on today's agenda, resolution number, I want to say 5 and 6, I circled them so I would know where to find it. Yes, number 5 and 6. They're just updates to a current policy or to 2 different policies that still had no child left behind language in there. So those are just updates to reflect the current language regarding our title funding. The teachers are still currently working on curriculum updates, and they will hopefully be on the agenda for the August 31st meeting for approval for the board. So thank you for the teachers who are working on that over the summer. I know we discussed briefly the GCN requires, according to Paul's law, which is staff training on epilepsy. So that's been added and updated, and that is due February 1st, 2022. The manipulatives for math for grades 1, 2, and 5 have been ordered, and then also additional manipulatives, replacement manipulatives for grades 3 and 4 have been ordered. Once those come in, they'll be split up and sent out to the appropriate classrooms. And then, and there was a collaborative federal desk monitoring report that also added a couple updates to some of our other title fundings and one ESSER report. So we just needed to update some of that language. And then finally, we discussed the interviews with Diversity Council consultants for this coming school year. And the committee of teachers and admin were able to narrow the pool down to 2 potential candidates. And we are now waiting on proposals from those candidates to see how we are ready to move forward. And we are aiming for early fall to jump in head first and get this ball rolling as quickly as possible. We had discussed also specifically in Ed Committee, just looking at, with this person, really focusing first on hiring practices. And we talked about, next steps and what I think the administration kind of went through recently in the late spring, having to find people as quickly as possible, because when we hire a new teacher in June who is already contracted, they have to give a 60-day notice. And that really impedes upon our ability to find someone and get them in by September 1st. So we talked about, how to look forward and get ahead of the game for next year. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Drappi. Does anybody have any questions, Mrs. Prisco, in regard to this report? Nope. All right. So we're going to move on to community resources. And Dr. Dionisio, myself, and Mr. Day met on July 15th. We had a 4 p.m. meeting. It was a very short agenda. Some of it Dr. Dionisio covered in his superintendent's report. We spoke about the school reopening plan with the road forward. And as Dr. Dionisio mentioned, we're going to be watching the guidance from the CDC as that unfolds. We also spoke about the search process for the director of athletics, and we just heard from Ms. Palmarezzi, so congratulations yet again. We got very quick updates. The VEA and the VAA negotiation for new contracts is progressing as on schedule. And the last topic that we touched upon, and there's no recommendation or action tonight, was in reference to non-emergent emails. We get a lot of emails and we try to field them as best we can. And some things require an immediate response and others are general topics. So part of our discussion going forward, and we'll break it down into our smaller committees again, is possibly coming up with a process to address those emails in part of our public session. So we'll gather emails over the 2 weeks possibly, and then summarize for public during the next meeting session. So that was just something that came up with ideas. So that's something that going forward that we will speak about. And other than that, we were a very quick meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
I don't know if this is a question and a comment.
Let her fly.
Thank you. Okay. So when we're talking about the process, you said you reviewed the process for the athletic director search process. Can you kind of just illuminate that really quickly? It's not much different than the processes for the middle school principal, or really any of these other search processes?
Process has been the same. When I started here in 2014, we started to develop process to make sure that we had some consistency in regards to committee process for positions, both administrative and teaching positions. When we're talking about teaching positions, we typically, as long as time is not a constraint, this goes back to what you mentioned earlier around, whether we're hiring in the summer, can we get students into the classroom to do a model lesson? Ideally, we want our new staff members to do a model lesson, demo lesson, so that way we can see new teachers in action and use that as another data point in driving decision-making. Among the other variables as well, teaching philosophy, philosophy around being inclusive of all children and all abilities, taking a look at people's experience. So when we take a look at administrators, you don't really have that piece of it. So that's the only distinguishing difference. From the standpoint of the interview process, we collect all the resumes through AppletTrack. We post on njschooljobs.com. We post on K12jobspot.com. We sometimes post on nj.com, which is very expensive. So we typically do that in specific scenarios when we really need to attract a larger applicant pool. We most recently did it a few weeks back because we were having a difficult time getting an AP psychology teacher. It was very expensive for the one posting. It was around $500 just for that one posting. And it really didn't result in anything tangible for us that was any different than the other websites. But it is something that we will go to if we feel like we need to get another resource. After we collect all of the applications, there's a screening process by a committee of administrators. They start interviewing and narrowing it down, similar to what we had with Mr. Cruz when we did the school business administrator position and the HBW principal position. We do a screening process. We do several rounds. We then do an interview committee that includes teachers and administrators. We collect both that qualitative and quantitative feedback. We use that as data points from a number of different people. We did the same thing with the director of athletics position most recently. And then typically the final two candidates will then be recommended and come to the superintendent. And the superintendent will then have interviews there and do background checks and then make a recommendation to the Board of Education. And the Board of Education with administrators will have a meet and greet session, but with the teaching staff, that typically stays with the administration. So that's pretty consistent across the board for all of the positions.
I like that it's the same. I like that it's the same all across, and it keeps all across. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were there any other questions in regard to Community Resource Committee? If no, we will move on to athletics and co-curricular. Mrs. Prisco?
So I did meet with Mr. Merkler back on July 12th. It seems like it was decades ago, but we reconnected again today. And congratulations again to Mrs. Pomeranzi. I look forward to working with you when you come aboard because I'm on the athletics committee. I really enjoy your energy and your positive vibes. So I really look forward to working with you. So congrats again. And there really is not too much to report on athletics. The softball trip, they're looking to return the softball trip to Disney come March of 2022. And again, that's all based on Disney's guidelines and the health guidelines. So Mr. Merkler is working on that with Mrs. Hemsley. So hopefully those girls will be able to take on that trip again this March. They've done it for several years now. And right now, this week, our teams are in the non-contact period, which means this week is completely free of any team practices. And tennis and football will begin up on August 9th, and then the rest of the sports will start up on August 16th. And that is all I have for athletics.
Thank you, Mrs. Prisco. Does anybody have any questions in regards to athletics? No? And then we had buildings and grounds. Mrs. Prisco, did you
I
guys
did.
meet on buildings and grounds as
Yes.
well?
So I met with Mr. Higgins yesterday, and that was yesterday. So he did his report on the information for the HVAC, moving along. At the high school, there's tennis court repairs being done, sidewalk repairs, upgrade lighting, overhead on the lobby curved wall, new railings in the hallways, and new doors in the teachers' workrooms. At Lanning, we are painting the multi-purpose room, new shades in the multi-purpose room, and sidewalk and driveway apron repairs. At FN Brown, new stair treads in the main auditorium entrances, sidewalk and driveway apron repairs, and a new door to the counselor's office. At Forest, they are receiving some new classroom shades, and others will be replaced as time goes on. And at HBW, new floor and ceiling tiles and lights in the gym hallway, which I think needed it. It was a little dark in there, and new carpeting in the music room and painting of the music room. So, and if you saw the lobby, it looks fantastic out here as well. So thank you, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Prisco. Any question or comment on that report? If no, we are going to move to public comments on agenda action items to be approved. So if any members of the audience have any comments on, those are the resolutions that we're going to approve tonight. So if anybody has any questions or comments on that, so please come to the podium. And I don't see anybody. So for discussion items on our regular agenda, the topic that I wanted to bring up is to just update everybody. The full board has completed our self-evaluation and the evaluation of our superintendent, Dr. Dionisio. The deadline was extended to the end of July, and our New Jersey School Boards Association field rep is Ms. Peterson, and she was unable to make it to this evening's meeting. She had a conflict. So she will be attending our August 31st meeting, and at that point, we will do a public review of our board self-eval, and Dr. Dionisio, in confidential, we will go over your eval with you. And were there any other topics that anybody needed to bring up for discussion, any new or old business?
Is this where I bring up the question about agenda items or no? We do this, like, I can't ever remember when we do this. Or is that?
Is that right before roll call?
Yeah, I think that's right before roll call.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so no other discussion items. So we are going to do a roll call on our resolutions. So I need a motion to move resolutions number 1 through 29.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi.
Second.
And second by Mrs. Prisco. Thank you. And are there any discussions on resolutions 1 through 29?
1 through 29, yes. I guess 25 and 26, there's two different salaries here.
Wait a second. There's one.
Oh, rescind, I'm sorry. There it is, there's rescind. Okay, answered, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on any of those? No? If not, Mr. Cruz, can you please
Sure.
do the roll call.
Sure. Mr. Allworth, absent. Mr. Day, absent. Mrs. Strappi,
Yes.
Mrs. Fresky,
Yes.
and Mrs. Frisco.
Yes. Yep,
Thank
we
you.
have a quorum and those resolutions pass. Thank you. And then we have addendum resolution, and we just have one addendum resolution, and I need a motion to accept the addendum resolution number 1.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi,
I'll second that.
second by Mrs. Prisco. And is there any discussion on that? Nope. Mr. Cruz, can you please call the roll on that?
Sure. Mr. Allworth is absent. Mr. Day is absent. Mrs. Strappi,
Yes.
Mrs. Fresky,
Yes.
and Ms. Frisco.
Yes.
You have quorum. Thank you.
We have a quorum and that passes. Thank you for that. And let me see. And at this point, we open the meeting up to public comments, and that is on any topic that any member of the public wishes to bring up. And I would remind you, as you come to the podium, to please state your name and your address. Please spell your name as well. That'll be helpful. And it's limited to 5 minutes per person.
Are you keeping the time? Yes, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Grisella, as a Victor, Sorry. Again, Denise Grisella. I'm 130 Personette Avenue. I'm actually glad that we discussed a little bit of hiring because I had some concerns when I saw the 2 selections for the vice principal of the high school and the middle school principal. Again, they were both white men. Now, I understand sometimes perception and reality aren't the same, and you need data to back up your thoughts. So I went through all of the minutes that were available publicly online since 2014 when Dr. Dionisio took the position of superintendent. At that time, there were 19 administrative positions that were open in Verona since 2014 that I could identify. Just a note, 2015's minutes are not available online, so I had to back into that data. They go to the agenda, not to the minutes, the links. So, yes, even on the archives, I hit every one of them. Okay. So since starting in 2014, like I said, there've been 18 administrative, or what I've said, leadership positions. Of these positions, 16 have been filled by men. That is 84%. Now this is, I redid the math while we were sitting there to account for the new athletic director. Before that, it was 89%, in case anyone's interested. 16 have been filled by people who are white. Again, 84%. 14 have been filled by white men, or approximately 74%. 3 have been filled by white women, or approximately 16%. And 2 have been filled by non-white men, or approximately 11%. None have been filled by non-white women. Of these administrative positions, 100% of them that are student-facing have been filled by white people, 100%. Now, my research isn't scientific. It's looking through board minutes, but it has taken me several hours to compile this information. It's not individual positions that I am upset about. It's not the HPW principal was a woman and now is a man, although my 7th grader is a little upset about that. It's the systematic and pattern of hiring that is disturbing. It is disturbing. Essex County is the most diverse county in New Jersey. New Jersey is the 4th most diverse state in the union. Yet we cannot find a non-white woman to fill an administrative position. We cannot find a non-white person to fill a student-facing position. There needs to be an examination of the underlying hiring practices and prejudices, unconscious or not, that are part of the hiring process in Verona schools. If you don't hire qualified non-white people, you will never hire qualified non-white teachers. Or if you do, they will not stay because they are not feeling supported. They will move on. So I'm going to end a little bit about my daughter, my other daughter. I have two who are in the 7th grade. One is white, one is black. They have actually had very different experiences in the Verona public school system. If anyone would care to discuss those with me, I'd be happy to explain them to you. Now, my black daughter went to school the first day back in September, after she had been home since March, missing her friends, missing her colleagues, wanting to see her teachers. She came running out of school, running the first day of school, so excited. Mommy, 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 you're never gonna believe what I saw. She said, I saw a teacher who looked like me. And I was like, great, you have a teacher who's black? Who is it? I don't know who it is. And she said, oh, no, it's not my teacher. I was walking down the hall and there was a black woman with a lanyard in the office. She didn't have a black teacher. She saw a black woman for the first time in a Verona public school who was not an aide, who was not a lunch attendant, who was actually someone she thought was a teacher. Turns out it was a substitute. But to her, that experience of seeing someone who looked like her was so powerful, it overrode her friends, her teachers, everything about what the first day of school back was in Verona. I'm sure my time is up, but I thank you for your patience and for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you coming to the podium.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. Congratulations, by the way. I'm here.
We need your name and address.
I'm getting to that. I'm here because I'm reading a statement of another town resident who couldn't be here, and they're not going to be able to attend and make public statements. So that's, my name is Christina Ford. I live in Verona, 50 East Street Place, but I'm here and reading a statement on behalf of Wesley Tashir Rodriguez. He's a parent in town. I'm just going to read exactly what he said. Dear Verona School Board members, my name is Wesley Tashir Rodriguez, and my child attends Forest Avenue School. I cannot make this evening's meeting because I have a board meeting at work. Here are some of the comments I would like to submit to be part of the official record. I will try to have someone read this for them for me if allowed, but if not, I hope they would be acknowledged by the board on this email. You had talked about you're getting inundated with emails, so I'll read one. I think this is the way around it a little bit, at least with some of them. Hiring teachers and student-facing staff. I understand there are several vacancies in the district and was interesting, these are hypotheticals, I guess he's asking, interested to know how Verona is ensuring the staff interviewed and hired are reflective of the student body, which has become more diverse in recent years. Are there where are the vacancy hired? Universities with diverse bodies might be a better place, historically Black community or universities or something. There are a lot of pipeline programs around here. Does Verona's administration compare notes with other schools that have success in hiring related to diverse educators? Diversity, which is race, ethnicity, LGBTQ, non-binary, non-traditional home settings. How was the diversity advisory committee created, advertised, or recruited for? No one I knew even knew about it the first time around. Further, there should be a way for non-committee members to know what's discussed and even have a way to participate. Will it be coming back this next year? In addition to the diversity hiring, meaningful diversity curriculum and activities should further what we are trying to achieve for our community. There are a myriad of examples that can be secured through neighboring towns. Personal experience. The experience my child is getting in the district is wonderfully academically, but socially, it is not reflective of the real world and won't prepare her for life beyond Verona. I know several kids that go to college after Verona and experience culture shock if they go to school with different demographics than our town. Finally, I don't think my child brings to the school, I don't think what my child brings to the school community is valued here as it would be in other places. Sharing our diversity, cultures, traditions seems like an afterthought that might only occur once a year around a holiday class project. I look forward to working with the board and superintendent on these issues if I am welcomed. Thank you for your time and consideration on my comments. Wesley Tashia Rodriguez. I actually never met him. I'm just doing this because I was asked to do it. I know that we have time limits, but I would also like to speak on my behalf, just my experience in town as a parent. Again, on diversity issues in school. I grew up here. I'm one of the lifers that people often criticize, but I'm a lifer who left for an extended period of time. I went to college. It was culture shock. I was surrounded by a totally diverse background of people, and I take that as a good thing. That was good. I learned a lot. Ultimately, I came back here to raise my family because there is value in Verona. This isn't, all these things are critical, and we can be critical of the board and the school and the town council and all that. There is value here. That's why I participate in so many of the things that I do. But there can be work done. This needs to get better. Like, funny, we're going through these statistics, and I realized I graduated 27 years ago. And you know what I have in common with the kids today? The only Black teacher in the school 30 years ago was a gym teacher, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing today. There has been no progress. And I understand that you use the internet and these school and tools to recruit. It's not working. Like, whatever it is just the justification. We have to do better. We have a very diverse, a way more diverse than when I grew up. I know Pam's brother was my senior class president when I graduated here. It's a totally different town than it was, and we need to reflect that. We need to do better. And a panel doing an interview, I don't know what kind of applicants you got, but like, picture yourself in a similar situation where you're in panel trying to get a job, and every single person on that panel is a different race than you. You're going to perform the best. How do you become the best applicant in that? You can't become the best applicant. This is not about any individual person hired. But we hired from within. We did the same thing that we've been doing for a very long time. It's the easy way out. It's not going to be easy. It shouldn't be easy. Our best applicants are people that can help our kids progress and do better. We concentrate on academics, how many AP classes. That is not the only metric to get kids ready. And I just really hope that I'm glad to hear that we have a female athletic director. I don't know if that's ever happened in Verona. That's historic, maybe. I think it probably is. I can't remember. And we didn't even mention that because that highlights how crazy it is that we don't have women in leadership positions, never mind people of color. And I think that can change. And on a very short personal note, we're a different household. We're two moms. I grew up in this town. It was horrifically closeted experience as a child. It's very much different now. But it's something that you guys can do better. We can do better. We have Mother's and Father's Day parties every year for every class. And we don't address the fact that not every household has a mother and a father. We don't do that. I know other schools address these things in different ways. We put it on the teachers to have awkward conversations with the single mom or the two lesbian moms. To like, how do you want to deal with this? What kind of special project? It needs to come from up, down. And I hope that, and I know that I know that these teachers are great. I know that you guys are open to these ideas, but we have to effectuate them. And I'm happy to work along with everybody and try to just make Verona better because it is a great town. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Bork, I'm sorry, do you want to give us the copy of the email that you read? Oh, okay, yeah, that'll be great. Okay, understood. I understand it's annotated. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kara O'Flynn. I live at 23 Hamilton Road. I work as a researcher who studies demographic and cultural trends. I have a few things I like to say about how demographic change is affecting American culture and why it's important for Verona students to be exposed to more diversity in our school's teaching staff, leadership, administration, and curriculum. The first point I'd like to make is that our kids' generation is vastly more diverse than our own, as a couple of people have already said. In our lifetimes, there's been a rapid demographic shift away from a majority white America. Our school-age kids are the first generation that is 50% non-Hispanic white and 50% a kaleidoscope of races and ethnicities. As they get older, the United States population will tip toward greater diversity. Second point is that young people today value their uniqueness. They celebrate all forms of diversity. Through social media, teens connect to peers in other countries. They express their gender identities and sexual orientations in ways that were unthinkable when we were teenagers. They want to feel safe bringing their full, authentic selves to school. They pay attention to how people with differences are represented, and they notice when they are not. They stand up for themselves and for each other. With time, the tastes, values, and ideologies of these diverse young generations are going to become mainstream American culture. My third point is that we need to prepare our students for the world beyond Verona. When our kids go to college, they will immediately be in a more diverse setting. The same will be true in their careers. Corporations are prioritizing diversity and being held accountable to measurable diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. Businesses are going global and spreading teams across multiple countries. Even for those who plan to work and trade locally, their potential customer base is going to be more diverse. Cultural awareness and sensitivity will be essential tools for our kids to communicate successfully with peers, professors, customers, and managers. There is no turning back the clock on changing demographics and the globalization of our workforce. If we don't make diversity an urgent priority in our hiring, curriculum, and staff representation, we are preparing Verona kids for an America of the past. Being able to comfortably navigate diverse settings is as valuable a skill for our kids as the STEM skills that we prioritize. We need diverse administration, faculty, and staff to improve the experience of diverse students, to prepare all of our students for college and careers, and to give them a more complete picture of the world. The academic experience in Verona needs to look to the future and make sincere and measurable goals now towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I have to bring the microphone all the way down from me. Okay, I'm good. All right. I am here today to express my displeasure in the way that the board meetings are being shared with the public. The Board of Education is voted in by Verona residents to serve those residents' needs and should therefore be available to Verona residents in the platform that best suits our needs. I am asking that the board reinstate virtual meetings. In this day and age where we are expecting our teachers and students to engage in virtual and hybrid education, it is not too much to ask the board and administration provide us with the opportunity to attend board meetings virtually. It has been noted that when these meetings were shared via Zoom, there was a much larger turnout than there has been when the meetings are in person. As parents of children that are school-aged, virtual meetings provide us all the flexibility to participate in the goings-on in the Verona Board of Education. As the board, I would think that meeting the needs of those that vote you in would be a top priority. Virtual meetings serve many purposes. For one, many of us aren't able to leave our young children home on a Tuesday night to attend those meetings. That is the reason that I cannot be as available to attend in-person meetings. I cannot leave my children home alone at their age, especially at bedtime. However, I was able to attend every single virtual meeting. We can also not assume that every family is a two-parent family with built-in childcare. Virtual meetings also meet the needs of families that do not work traditional 9-to-5 jobs. On top of which, they are a wonderful accommodation for any residents that have a variety of disabilities. For example, if a person has difficulty with their mobility, hearing, etc., Zoom allows that person to attend the meetings with the ability to meet their accommodations. They don't have to worry about getting to the meeting or having the meeting interpreted. Closed captioning and instant access to a computer can handle those situations and many others. Don't we all strive to be inclusive? I am disheartened to know that many residents have reached out to this board and administration and have been told that virtual meetings are not an option. Why? What is the reasoning? Other districts are able to continue with virtual and hybrid board meetings. Why can't Verona? We have the technology and the ability. So what is the reason that this board and administrators won't reinstate virtual meetings? More attendees and more diverse attendees mean the needs of our families and students are being heard. That means that the board can better attend to the needs of our community and school system. A virtual option would provide us with the ability to reach more Verona residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi guys, my name is Denise Braver. I live at 6 Cliff Street. I'm actually going to be speaking on behalf of 2 VHS students and then on behalf of myself, so I hope that's okay. So first I'll be speaking on behalf of Nandi Webb. She is a recent VHS, or she's a VHS student, class of 2023, and she wanted to speak to why diversity in school administrations are important today. Diverse administrations in schools are essential, especially in predominantly white schools. In a town like Verona, where there's already a small population of people of color, our school system should have multiple non-white and other minority authority figures for the safety and comfort of POC students. It is also beneficial for the large number of white students in VHS to become accustomed to diversity for their futures and higher levels of education and the workplace. White students can become comfortable with their differences with people of color and respect them. It is also important for white students to learn about other cultures and backgrounds. A more diverse setting can also challenge negative stereotypes that may have been developed from a young age. But more importantly, students of color should feel comfortable going to an administrator that can understand them on a deeper level and their experiences as a minority in Verona. Racialized students can also see themselves in their teachers, principals, guidance counselors, and other leaders. The hiring of more non-white leaders is critical for representation purposes. Representation is a great influence for students who want to have a future career in the school system and for other students to see that they can be as successful and influential as the people who look like them. And then I have another comment from Maria Sarah. Hi, my name is Maria Sarah. I'm 18 years old and just graduated from Verona High School as a 2021 grad. I am a white, pansexual, genderqueer student who had an okay time in high school. The only reason it was actually okay was because of a handful of students and staff that I found connections to. Finding the teachers that openly supported and defended the non-white, non-cisgender, and non-heterosexual students made learning an entirely different experience. I was more engaged in classes where I knew I could talk to the teacher without fear of judgment or harassment in any form. To those teachers, I say thank you. And to the administration, I say, please understand that. Understand that Verona is diversifying and that as time moves on, more students will feel comfortable accepting who they truly are and standing up for themselves. We need the support of the adults in our lives in order to do our best as students and as young adults. As a white kid, growing up, I never truly understood that all my teachers were also white or were light-skinned Latinx like me. I started realizing the lack of diversity in middle school when my non-white friends would start to face daily harassment from teachers and students like unwanted hair touching, comments on meals, comparing tans to melanated skin. I can go on. I wish for these friends and for future non-white students to not have to deal with this and to have staff they can go to instead for advice or someone to relate to an experience. Thank you. And then finally, I'm just going to speak on my own behalf. So I am also speaking out against a pattern of hiring decisions that have resulted in the selective hiring and promotion of white cis straight men in Verona schools. I come at this from the perspective of a white person who grew up in a public school system that got it right. I'm from Teaneck in Bergen County. If you're familiar with Teaneck, you know that Teaneck was the first white majority township in New Jersey to voluntarily integrate in the 60s. You know that its faculty and administration reflect the diversity of its students. So to give you a flavor, my first bio teacher, Miss A, was an Asian American woman. Mr. Matthew, my first chem teacher, a South Asian immigrant. Mr. Hawley, my AP chem teacher, a Liberian immigrant. Miss Prince, my first algebra teacher, a Black woman. Mr. Rosales, my favorite AP English teacher, a Latino man. My favorite music teacher of all time was Mr. Thompson, a Black man. All three of my elementary, middle, and high school principals were Black. As a white young person and major nerd, I revered my teachers. My teachers taught me to think critically about American history and to challenge white supremacy. As a young adult, I need to question the white media's portrayal of Black and brown people because media portrayals didn't reflect my reality. In my reality, Black and brown people led, difference was valued. By stark contrast, you must recognize that the teaching and administrative staff in Verona does not reflect the growing diversity of its student body. And the selective promotion of white cis straight men in our school system is harming all of our kids. It teaches our students a very nasty untruth that only white cis straight men can lead. It leaves children who do not identify as white or male without role models and mentors in the same race gender group. And can I keep going? Okay. I'll email you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
How is this? Can you hear me? Can you hear that? You can hear me? Okay, great. I'm Val Braver. I'll spell that for you. Braver is B as in boy, R-A-H, V as in Victor, E-R. I have two statements to read today. One is on behalf of another resident who's a parent, and one on behalf of myself. The first is from Jason Hyman. Hyman is spelled H-Y-N-D-M-A-N. He says, as a parent of two Black children in and entering the Verona school system, I'm deeply concerned about the apparent lack of commitment that this administration has in ensuring that all children are afforded a learning environment that they can thrive in. We know measurable benefits that a diverse teacher and administrative workforce has on our students of color, but we must also recognize that when we fail to expose white students to teachers and administrators that reflect America's demographic diversity, we're failing to properly prepare them for the already diverse and increasingly more so college campuses and workplaces. What opportunities will they be passed over because they lack the intercultural competencies to effectively communicate and collaborate with non-white managers and peers? Over the last 6 years, this administration has failed to hire administrators who, in the aggregate, are representative of the backgrounds of the children they are educating. Without administrators that reflect the diverse background of this region, the school district will not be able to attract and retain a diverse teaching staff. In the last year, we've also witnessed this administration's failure to even launch an initiative to address this and the other shortcomings of equity and inclusion. It's imperative that Verona actually invests in diversifying its teachers and administrators. This cannot be accomplished by using the same hiring policies that have resulted in a faculty that is even more disproportionately white than this already disproportionately white town. The administration must commit to and implement concrete policies to attract and retain teachers. There needs to be active recruitment for teachers and administrators of color. And until there is a critical mass of diverse faculty to naturally perpetuate representative hiring, the administration will need to invest in a competent consultant that is empowered to influence hiring decisions and empowered to implement policies to support and mentor new hires. So Jason's two questions to the board are, one, what policies and procedures will the BOE commit to implementing to ensure that the administration attracts and hires administrators and teachers that reflect the demographics of the student population? Two, will the BOE commit to hiring goal of ensuring that by the year 2026, both the administrative population and the teaching population of the district reflect the overall Verona population demographics that are reflected in the 2020 census data. For the next part, I'll read from myself, Val Braver. I would also like to add a few comments of my own about diversity in hiring, so the same topic. Hiring diversity is not a criticism of the existing teachers and administrators or their qualifications. Verona does have really great teachers. However, the majority of the teachers and administrators are white, which does not represent the demographics of our town, our state, our country, or our world, and does not prepare our children for the diverse world they will graduate into as adults. We all want our children to succeed, and succeeding will require that our children enter college and or the workforce skilled in communicating and collaborating with peers, mentors, professors, and managers who are not white. If our children have mostly white educators, teachers, coaches, administrators, how can we expect them to learn how to interact with people who are not white? How can we expect them to recognize and learn about the experiences and perspectives of people who are not white? If we fail to provide our children with a diverse learning environment, then we fail to provide them with the skills they need to succeed in our diverse world. Going forward, the BOE needs to increase diversity of newly hired leaders, administrators, teachers, and coaches to prepare our children for success in our growingly diverse world. Hiring practices and policies need to change. These policies can only change when leadership commits to quantitative, measurable goals that are included in performance reviews. So my question is, will the BOE commit to adding hiring diversity objectives for all people in leadership positions who are involved in the hiring process and making hiring decisions? So to give you a recap, there are 3 questions posed by Jason and myself. 1, what policies and procedures will the BOE commit to implementing to ensure that the administration attracts and hires administrators and teachers that reflect the demographics of the student population? 2, will the BOE commit to a hiring goal of ensuring that by the year 2026, both the administrative population and the teaching population of the district reflect the overall Verona population from the 2020 census data? And 3, will the BOE commit to adding higher diversity objectives for all people in leadership positions who are involved in the hiring process and decision? Thank you.
Can you state your address?
Oh, 6 Cliff Street. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Madrid Rodner. Oh, that's okay. Madrid Rodner, MADRIDRODNER, and I live on 33 Morningside Road. Okay, sorry. Okay. I'd like to begin with a statement or comment by Nico Teachin, a VHS graduate. Transitioning during high school has been one of the periods of my life I'd rather not remember. In fact, I would say the school essentially played 0 part in my transition due to the lack of resources and understanding of trans students. Out of all my teachers, I had only 2 that I felt lucky for just merely having my identity respected. The amount of times in my life I've gotten to interact with LGBTQ+ adults is so rare that my initial feeling is oddly excitement when the opportunity does present itself. Part of the reason why being around LGBTQ+ adults is such a valuable experience for me personally is that it serves as a reminder that even being who I am, it is possible to grow and be a part of society. Often I, and likely other youth, lose sight of this because of how difficult it is just to exist as myself around others. How can I imagine a future for myself if the present is so hard? Having an adult in your life who shares similar experiences as you can be comforting in so many ways. And now I'd like to make a statement for myself. A school is a place where students are supposed to feel safe. A school is a place where students should feel comfortable in their own skins and who they are as a person. I think we can all agree that is an important part of the mission of public schooling, that we must respect the individuality of students. Actually, in Verona Public Schools' own strategic plan for the years 2018 to 2023, that is verbatim one of the commitments made. Along with a strategy to, quote, integrate experiences that value diversity, promote cultural understanding, and consider multiple perspectives. So the ideas of diversity and inclusion exist here in our district, and I would love to see the actions we can take to achieve our goals. Quote, favoring action is in fact another commitment the board strategic plan makes. I want to tell you how favoring action in this instance by bringing in a more diverse faculty could do for me and those like me throughout my years through Verona Public Schools. I remember when I was in elementary school, my mom made me lunch often, like most other kids. My mom is an immigrant from Taiwan, so I grew up eating traditional Chinese cuisine in my household. I never thought anything of it until I sat in my cafeteria at Forest Avenue Elementary School when I took out my lunch, smelling the spices and delicious home-cooked food. Other kids around me pinched their noses and were quick to tell me how disgusting a piece of my heritage was. My cheeks became flushed and I was ashamed. Why did I have to be different? I did not eat lunch that day, and for many days after that. What would have been different if I knew I had a trusted teacher that looked like me and shared an identity with? Someone who I would have felt comfortable sharing my experience with. I think I would have felt safe and comfortable in myself if I had talked to this teacher. I urge the Board of Education to follow through with their commitment to action and give students with different backgrounds somewhere to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Karen Andre, and I live at 30 Howell Drive. I'm starting with comments for myself. I graduated from Verona High School last month. Out of the 24 teachers that I had during my time, only 3 of them were people of color and none of them were Black. The only Black female role model I have had from 2nd grade to graduation in the Verona Public Schools was my high school guidance counselor, who no longer works here. While I was lucky enough to have teachers who advocated for racial justice, taught about Black history, and educated students about systemic racism today, it did not make up for the fact that I never had a teacher that looked like me and could fully understand me. I asked a friend at West Orange High School how many teachers of color they knew of. Their answer was about 30, with 5 teachers being Black. Additionally, West Orange High School has a Black principal and 3 Black guidance counselors. I bring this up not to compare Verona's numbers to West Orange's numbers, as they have a larger district, but I bring this up to show that there are Black teachers in the area that could be hired. In my time at VHS, at least a dozen new teachers have been hired, but still none are Black. The only staff member I've been able to fully connect with and trust has been my Black guidance counselor who looked like me. Current Black VHS students no longer have the opportunity that I had. As a district, we must do better for our Black students to make sure they feel seen and comfortable and safe in their schools. I also have a comment from my friend who also graduated last month. Her name is Brianna. As a queer, disabled, biracial woman, I was lucky to have an overall positive experience in high school. I did experience harassment, usually in the form of someone touching my hair without my consent or throwing jabs at me over my humorous shirt that says, "We are all lesbians." But I never let it bother me. But when those things did bother me, I knew I had certain faculty members to go to, such as Mrs. Wallerstein and Dr. Meyer. And as much as these women helped me, they are simply not enough. The school needs more teachers that are not white, cisgender, straight, or neurotypical, because I and many other students who have unique experiences need someone to relate to. We want to speak about our experiences and have them be fully understood. We do not want therapists, but we do want to know that we aren't alone. Additionally, there are some topics that are crucial for us to learn, but must come from certain perspectives. For example, African American history and literature would best be taught by an African American teacher. Considering the interest Verona High School has shown in creating a more inclusive curriculum, this seems especially important. Even if a specific perspective isn't needed, having a new perspective in a class such as film and English would be extremely refreshing. It is ridiculous that the only diversity is among the language teachers. There is no way to lose when hiring more diverse teachers. All you will be doing is creating a more tolerant and vibrant community, one that more people can look back at and genuinely smile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Tawana Brown, Tawanna Brown, and I reside at 91 Hillside Avenue. As a former student, I thought that it was imperative for me to speak on the topic of representation, as Verona Public Schools lack significantly. I moved to Verona in 2015 as I was entering the 7th grade. From 7th grade to 12th grade graduation, there were only 3 Black faculty members throughout the entire district, only one being a middle school gym teacher, and the other a VHS school counselor that no longer works here, as well as the Black HIB specialist that joined Verona for a short period. The most diversity being demonstrated throughout the language department. Though I am no longer a student, it is vital that I express my concerns. My experience as a Verona resident and student has unfortunately consisted of significant identity issues, almost absolute representation, prejudice, discrimination, racism, and sometimes flawed teachings of American history and diversity. While I could utilize this time to simply tell you that Verona needs more representation, more specifically Black representation across the board, that is a waste of time. Those in the position of power, board members, hiring staff, community members, and residents all know that diversity is often talked about here, however, is not represented or implemented. As a young Black woman embarking on a new journey of life beyond Verona, I can say that Verona Public Schools did not teach me to adapt and to appreciate a diverse world full of marginalized groups and individuals. The irony alone being that I am a part of those marginalized groups and communities. Diversity in culture, awareness, and sensitivity is very important for students to be academically equipped and socially prepared to live in a world that does not solely consist of cisgender white males. As Verona becomes more diverse in student body, it is imperative that the workforce does as well. However, noting that simply hiring diverse staff members will not be enough. It is important that the Board of Education understands that creating a diverse work environment is also essential for ensuring that each hired individual, regardless of their racial complex, feels welcomed, appreciated, and respected enough to stay here. Continuing to promote and implement a disproportionate educational environment isn't unjust. I do not have any questions for the Board of Education at this time. However, I do have suggestions. I would like to advise the Verona Board of Education to look into a website called Equity Institute for Race-Conscious Pedagogy, a website facilitated by Dr. Stephanie Batiste-Bosco, along with Dr. Batiste-Bosco's dissertation on Moving Beyond Black History Month, how 3 teachers implemented and interpreted the New Jersey Almasted and legislation. Dr. Batiste-Bosco, a professor at Montclair State University and assistant principal at Fairlawn High School, is no stranger to this topic, as she worked to promote and implemented advanced diversity among staffing and teachings through her initiatives in a town similarly demographically to Verona. Ultimately, representation is important for promoting acceptance, awareness, education, and respect. I would have benefited tremendously from having a Black humanities or arts teacher, someone that can identify and directly speak to the curriculums that are often misrepresented and mistaught. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Donahue, 31 South Prospect Street. Good evening. I'd like to speak to the discontinuation of the Zoom option for Board of Ed meetings. First, the benefits. You've already demonstrated that you can conduct a Zoom meeting. We obviously have the technology and did so all last year. Higher attendance translates into more community engagement. It accommodates more people's schedules. Zoom provides accessibility for our disabled community members, including those with physical, sensory, intellectual, or psychosocial impairments. Second, many neighboring towns and organizations in Verona have continued to provide a Zoom option. Cedar Grove, Montclair, Livingston, and several other surrounding towns all have the Zoom option for their meetings. Our town council has also been conducting their meetings with this option. I'm on the board of Child, and we've decided to provide an option going forward as we had increased parent participation this year, and we welcome that engagement. Additionally, yesterday, Mrs. Freshy retweeted a message from the NJSBA County School Board Association, allowing for their members to attend both in person and virtually. If board members now have this option for their own meetings, our community members should have the same accessibility. My question is, what is the official position on Zoom, and the reasons why it's been discontinued. Thank you.
Are there any more public comments? Nope. Do we have any? You want to speak to anything?
No, I could speak to just a few general. Since there are no other public comments, I just, first of all, like to thank everyone who came up to share perspective and point of view with the board and the administration. While I know we all took notes here and we appreciate the feedback, and we will certainly take it into consideration. And we thank you for everything that you shared. And while I can't go through point by point, I do want to just provide I know some people were coming in a little later and may have missed what we talked about earlier, and we have more updates coming up, but just a little bit of an update just to piggyback off of what Mrs. Drappi mentioned earlier on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So we do have a committee of staff members and administrators who have been interviewing candidates who are going to continue to be our consultants. And we're looking to be able to pick up with that work again and do that successfully this early fall. So the candidate pool of those consultants that will help guide the work here, it's very important, meaningful work for our community. We will be moving forward with that for the early fall. In addition to that, we did send out emails last year for community members to really get a great participation. We have about 80 people in the Verona community who volunteered for the committee. We will be sending out another email to see if there are new people who want to be part of that process. So that will be coming out in the coming months as well. And we'll look to continue to do that so that way we can continue to increase the participation and community voice. One of the recommendations that came from the committee last year was around specifically the hiring practices piece and how we can continue to expand. And the HBCUs piece, historically Black colleges, and the recruiting component around colleges was something that was brought up. Typically, when Verona administration goes and actively recruits at job fairs, that tends to happen around January and February. Just with the timing of when that recommendation came forward, we are going to, and Dr. Miller was actually speaking about that today in our education committee. That is a focus to be able to go out in January and February and continue to expand the schools that we're actively recruiting at. So that's an important piece. So it is something that we do plan on doing to increase the diversity of the application, the candidate pools that we have. And that's all I have at this time.
I would just, can you hear me okay? Sorry. I would just like to add that in Ed Committee today, when we were talking about that and discussing how, that is the first real tangible step that the administration can take in terms of attracting a more diverse candidate pool. And I think, that's part of the concern. We've also discussed in past that as curriculum is updated to more accurately reflect diversity and inclusion, that will also in turn attract a more diverse candidate pool. But I think we also had this conversation with the understanding that that's literally just the first step. It's a big step and it's an important step, but that's not where the job ends. And I think Dr. Dionisio made that very clear today during Ed Committee that yes, the first step is attracting a larger candidate pool. And at the same time, there's just so much more work that has to go into it. So, I just want to make sure that, those who are listening and the board understands that even though we were talking about that today, it's not where everything stops. And just because we are hiring or looking to hire somebody to help us navigate this monumental task of really making sure that we take all the right steps and do it very deliberately to make sure our students feel as safe as possible in their own skin at all times. That's also not the end of it as well. And it's
it's a marathon, if I will. It's a marathon. Sorry, she's a marathon runner. So I think that's just an important comment to say. I also want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I especially want to thank our young folks for coming out tonight and speaking your truth. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dionisio and Mrs. Drappi for additional comments. And I echo the board sentiments. I do appreciate everyone who came to talk at the podium. You did see us all taking copious notes. We do go back and digest. And as they've said, we are working. There are steps, and hopefully we could facilitate them as quickly as possible, but your voices are heard. So I do want to thank you again. And if there are no other comments, our next meeting is on Tuesday, August 31st. Confidential session is at 5:30 with our public session beginning at 7 p.m. here in the high school auditorium. And I do need
I'll also add one more piece. Another. I'm sorry?
So that's something that we're not commenting on tonight. We're not going to have that discussion. You need to speak at the podium. Everybody has a chance. We're closing the meeting now.
Why can't you address questions when they're asked? You need to go on 30% there. What about the gun meeting? You've heard people talk about people who are disabled, people who are single parents, people who get a higher babysitter to get here every other Tuesday, right? To come here for a meeting. But we're still want to engaged. Do things allow that traffic? When I asked about today, the just nursing communication at the library, and I was like, oh, it's going to be recorded. Viewing a recording of the meeting is a completely different animal than being here and being able to interact with the board. I mean, we had a woman who said she couldn't hear what we were saying in microphone. If she was at Zoom, she could have closed captioned it. I mean, what about a big deaf participant who wants to come and be part of the Board of Ed meeting? You have to hire an ASL translator. You have to hire an ASL translator for that. So what you're doing is you're putting people who are not typical Americans, who are not typical middle-class white Americans at a disadvantage to come and speak out about diversity, about any subject they want to talk about with the Board of Education. And you're doing that, and you knew this was going to come up, and yet you decided not to address it. Not to address it. We're not addressing that. Well, when are you going to address it? Are you going to address it next month? Are you going to address it next month? Will it be on the agenda next month?
So, Mrs. Rosella, what I could share with you is the board made a decision several months ago to shift back to the recorded sessions. As Mrs. Fresky mentioned, the board is taking that under advisement. The board will discuss it, and then we'll be able to provide an update at a later time.
This is 931 South Prospect Street. So now that you, the board members, are able to have your meetings in a fashion where it's more accessible for you, can you explain why that you can do that now, Mrs. Fresky, since you were the one who retweeted that? I'm assuming you're supportive of that.
As I retweeted it,
important for members to be able to have accessibility.
So New Jersey school boards meetings cover the entire state, from the entire state. So those are during the school day, the work day. I actually have a job. I work
mandatory
Okay,
stay on the board.
but we're not, but this is not a back and forth. Okay, I just want to remind, excuse me, I would like to just remind the public that our board meetings are for the board in front of the public. It is not a back and forth. We are listening to your comments and we're listening to your comments. I'm speaking. I'm going to continue to speak. If you would like to listen, you're welcome to. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to take your comments and we will discuss it and then we can report out to you at the next board meeting.
I have one last thing to say. As a board member of child, I will speak as the mom of two children with IEPs actually. So I had about 5 years where one of my children was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disease, which is very serious. And another child who's autistic. For 5 years, I couldn't go to any meetings at all. At one point, I was the president of the Verona Junior Women's Club. I certainly been able to attend meetings at that point. That was very easy for me. In the last 5 years, there is no way I could have made these meetings. Not with a husband who travels, not with an inability to get babysitters with my children. And I'm not the only one. And that I do not want to share with the public, but I've been forced to. Because you don't listen. And that has been a problem this entire year. You don't listen.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Laura Giasone, 100 Linden Avenue. We vote in the Board of Education because we trust that you are going to advocate for our students and for their needs. Right now, their needs is for the residents of Verona to be able to be at these meetings. We have the technology. Our teachers have been forced to learn hybrid education overnight. I am a special education teacher. I run an ABA program. I'm also my school's behaviorist. I understand how hard hybrid learning is. ABA does not work over Zoom, I can tell you that. But I still did it, and I trained other people how to do it. I understand it's not ideal, but you have all taken on a position that we have entrusted with you all to advocate for our needs. And what we are telling you is our needs is that we need to be heard. I have a chronic illness. I will say that most of the time I can't come here because of childcare, but the reason I can't always come to these meetings is because I am ill, because I put in my time at work, I put in my mom hours, and you know what? I don't have anything left because I am sick in bed. I am bedridden. But you know what I was able to do? When you gave me that ability to see you on Zoom, I could attend every single meeting. I have a child that has an IEP, and I had some issues with Mr. Moriello. I was able to speak that through onto the Board of Education platform from bed, being sick, still able to do my job though, and still being able to be an advocate for my children. You guys are robbing us of that ability by not giving this to us, by not allowing us to have a hybrid board meeting. Other districts can do it. My district is doing it. I'm living it. I don't understand. And what is disheartening is that we email and we ask and we are told, well, when I was a parent, I was able to make the meeting, so you should try to make the meetings yourselves. That I'm sorry, but if I'm giving you guys my vote, I'm expecting you to advocate for my needs and for my children's needs, not for what's best for you when you had younger children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Prisco, second by Mrs. Drappi, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:39. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.